So at the close of the first day of the final offensive, the Battle of the Bulge, December 16th. So we played the AM and the PM turns. Probably should have played the night turn too, but I didn't. As in historical fashion, the in the area of the 28th Infantry Division, I think that was Norm Coda's old Keystone Division, where they were sent here into the Ardennes to do a little refitting, a little rest. The Germans punched across the river, Dasburg and Gemund, and just sort of decimated the small units that were sitting along the front line, sort of relaxing through the holiday season until they would be reassigned or repositioned or get back on the offensive. And the Germans have broken through now in an attack of complete surprise. I hear the stories about how they laid down straw on the roads in order to move armor in, and they could only move them at night. And how the secrecy of this mission was even kept to very minimal leadership in the German army. So the Germans have punched across the river there. Lear Panzer is starting to make its move to get across. 116th Panzer is working towards Saint-Vith, which you can see Saint-Vith here in this area here. All right, and 116th Panzer is working there. The Americans on the PM turn had to do some reaction. They couldn't do much on the first turn or on the AM turn, but on the PM turn, they started to react. They started to shift units over in front of Lear Panzer where they're breaking out. And I believe that's 6th Panzer Army, I think, is what this zone is. Yeah, 6th or 5th. 5th Panzer Army. Yeah, so it's 5th Panzer Army in the middle. 7th Army over here on the left. Okay? And 7th Army pretty much, as the Germans were, the plan was to sweep forward and then turn towards Antwerp. The objective was to secure Antwerp. Now, most of the German leadership, they knew that they didn't have the supplies or the manpower, the equipment to go that far. And they had presented a little bit of a lesser plan to Hitler. Of course, Hitler, that didn't go with him. He wanted them to go all the way to Antwerp, cut the British and the Americans apart from each other, and then sort of cause some dissension and break up the pact and possibly maybe end the war in the West, in the Western Front. But as we all know from history, that did not happen. The Americans and the Brits were very resilient. All the great stories we hear about the 101st Airborne around Bastogne and about Patton's armor working its way back in here to break the encirclement around them. And then I think it was the British at the town of Celle, British or Americans, I can't remember, that was pretty much the last engagement for the German armor in this campaign. And all kinds of great stories. This is one of the more infamous battles that we all know about or studied or have heard about when it comes to World War II. It's one of the big 3 or 4 or whatever. All right, so the 7th Army's objective was to cover the flank of the mobile armies of, was it 5th and I think 6th Panzer Army? Yeah, to cover the flank of the 5th and 6th. As they started to punch their hole and build that gap, 7th Army was to sort of screen their left side, to not allow any Allied reinforcements to come in and break up the surge. So they've started their push across the river, the 7th Army has, and they're going to try to drive these Americans out of here and start to extend the left flank and protect that left flank of the other 2 German armies here. So 5th Army has punched out, 5th Panzer Army has punched out. And like I said, they're en route to Bastogne. Now, the thing about this game is road movement is, to me, it's like a victory condition. I mean, in order for them to achieve victory, they've got to do effective combats and to move distances to get to the Meuse River, which, if we look way back on the map here, you'll see the Meuse River back near the Dice. That last blue line all the way back there, going all the way over to Liège. All right. They've got to clear these roads. They need to use the roads to get there, because movement through the Schnee Eifel or the Ardennes in the heavy wooded areas is not. You got to be on the roads. Even moving on the roads that are in the heavy wooded areas is very slow and painful. But they've got to have them to maneuver. So the trick for the Allies is to block those axes and delay the Germans as long as they can until the Allies can build up enough manpower to just completely stop the offensive and turn it back the other way, which, once again, as far as history goes, we know that happened. All right, so I've only played the first 2 turns. And like I say, in the center here, as it did happen, the Germans are already breaking out, and the Americans are sort of scattering units over there to cut their forward momentum off. Over to the 6th Panzer Army's area, over to the right, or to the north, the Hurtgen for the campaign for the dams over in the Hurtgen forest areas up here off the side where the Americans had started on offensive and were starting to drive towards the Ruhr dams and whatnot. Of course, that's going to get put on hold because the Germans start this major offensive, this surprise offensive. So you've got SS Panzer units sitting back here there's a hole now for them through the 106th Infantry and the 14th Cav Group, which were up here. They were the ones up here on the, what's it called? Was that the Schnee Eifel they were on? So the Germans are going to try to break through there, which they've already created a hole. But again, the second turn, the Americans have now shifted units over to sort of block this. So we'll see how this progresses. They've got to get a breakout in the early part of this game and start getting Allied units cut off so that they can maneuver down these roads and get to the Meuse River crossings. All right. Just sort of some face-to-face fights over here. No holes punched in the far end of the line yet. Now, truthfully, I know the Germans attacked on Monschau, but I'm pretty sure that from what I remember in reading in history that they didn't get much ground over here. Ground wasn't surrendered over here until the Bulge pocket had pushed so deep that the Allies up in this area had to retreat or had to back off to help cover or help secure the sides of that bulge that was created in their line. So this is the progress on the 16th, at the end of the 16th. Not a whole lot yet. I mean, this is actually a pretty big burst right here. And we'll just see how the Germans will develop this and what kind of forces they can get down in there. Again, this is one of the Simonitch 1940 series games, many that he did. So you have that zone of control bond where you can't move. The friendly units don't have to be directly beside each other. There's a space between them, but you get what's called a zone of control bomb that can't be penetrated. So it allows you to, in playing, which is kind of cool because it can minimize the amount of counters on the board and still allow you to cover terrain without allowing holes for your enemies to move through. Of course, you got to maintain those things, and that can be tough. Now, there's not a lot of loss type stuff in this game. Most of it's retreats and disruptions. There are losses, don't you? Like you can cause losses by not allowing somebody to retreat, or they can stay and hold and take a retreat or take damage instead of a retreat. But it's all done in step losses. Some units are 2-step units, some are 3-step units, and you have breakdown units once they get to that third loss. If they're like the two Fallschirmjäger units here are 3-step units. Once they hit, when they take their second loss, they have like it's a breakdown unit, a remnant unit that you put on the map, and that's their third step. There's not a whole lot of 3-step units. A lot of the American armor is. Some of the big infantry units are the regiments, and the Germans have some regiments that are the same way. All right, so there's your progress on December 16th. The intention is to do this day by day and post it on the day that it actually occurred. All right, so the Battle of the Bulge, Ardennes 44 by GMT. The Germans are trying to drive to the Meuse River, get the crossings, and then work towards Antwerp to split the British and the United States forces apart from each other, and hopefully to end the war on the west side, on the west front. All right, guys, let's get this posted, and we'll get this one up for you all to look at and get on with the next turn. Talk to you soon.